I wasn't even 12 weeks yet when I told him. I'd rehearsed it in my head all morning.
Calm.
Professional. Confident. I just wanted to let you know, I said, standing in his doorway. I'm pregnant. I'll need to discuss maternity leave planning soon. He didn't smile. Didn't congratulate me. Didn't even look surprised. He just leaned back in his chair and said, flatly, "That's going to be a problem." I laughed nervously, thinking he meant scheduling. "It's still early," I said. "I'm just trying to give plenty of notice." He folded his hands on his desk. "We're a small company. We can't afford extended absences. I worked full-time, salaried, 3 years in, never late, covered extra shifts when needed, took work home without complaining. I wasn't disposable, or at least I didn't think I was. What are my leave options?" I asked carefully. He pulled open a drawer and took out a single sheet of paper. No letterhead, no HR logo, just a typed paragraph. "We can offer a one-time payment of $50 for pregnancy leave," he said. I blinked. "50? Yes," he replied. "Or we can discuss termination if you're unable to meet role expectations." I thought I'd misheard him. "Are you saying my options are $50 or I'm fired?" "I'm saying," he corrected smoothly, "that prolonged absence isn't compatible with this role." $50. That wouldn't even cover one prenatal appointment. I stared at the paper. It read, "Pregnancy Leave Agreement, Voluntary Acceptance of One-Time Compensation, $50. Voluntary." That word was doing a lot of work. "I have rights," I said quietly. He shrugged. "We don't have to hold your position if you're unavailable. Small business realities." No HR representative present. No written policy, handbook referenced. Just him. And an ultimatum. My chest felt tight, but not from panic. From clarity. Because something about the situation felt sloppy. He expected me to panic. To accept the $50. Or to argue emotionally. Instead, I asked one question. "Can I get this offer in writing?" He slid the paper closer. "It's right there." No signature yet. Just a blank line at the bottom. Waiting. "I'll review it," I said. He nodded, already dismissing me with his eyes. "Don't take too long. We need to plan staffing." I walked back to my desk slowly. The office buzzed like any normal Tuesday. Phones ringing. Keyboards clicking. Someone laughing in the break room. No one knew that my employment had just been reduced to a $50 line item. I opened my email and typed a short message. Subject: Clarification of leave options. Per our conversation, you've offered a one-time $50 payment in lieu of pregnancy leave, or termination if I cannot fulfill full duties. Please confirm this is correct. I hit send. 3 minutes later, he replied. Correct. That single word settled it. I didn't respond again. I didn't argue. I didn't cry in the bathroom. Instead, I opened a new document. Resignation letter. Because if those were my two options, then I'd choose compliance. Just not the kind he expected. I didn't quit that day. That's what he expected. An emotional reaction. A dramatic exit. Tears. Anger. Instead, I went quiet. Very quiet. I forwarded his email to my personal account. Saved screenshots of the original pregnancy leave agreement. Printed a copy. Then I started reading. Company handbook. State labor laws. Federal pregnancy discrimination policies. Small business or not, there are lines you don't cross. And offering $50 in exchange for waiving maternity protections? That line wasn't blurry. It was neon. The next morning, he acted normal. Asked for project updates. Commented on a client proposal. Complained about a vendor delay. As if he hadn't just reduced my pregnancy to a budget inconvenience. By lunch, I had a consultation scheduled with an employment attorney. Free initial review. I didn't need drama. I needed clarity. That afternoon, I stepped outside during break and took the call from my car. I explained everything. The verbal ultimatum. The written confirmation email. The $50 document. The attorney was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you have all of this in writing?" Yes. And he explicitly confirmed termination as the alternative? Yes. Another pause. That's extremely problematic for him. Not for me.
For him.
She didn't overpromise. But she did explain something important. Even if I resigned, constructive dismissal could still apply if I was forced out under discriminatory conditions. In plain language, if he made staying impossible because I was pregnant, it didn't magically protect him just because I quit. I hung up feeling steady. Not angry. Not scared.
Steady.
The following Monday, he called me into his office again. So, he said, tapping the paper, have you decided? Yes, I replied calmly. I'm not signing that. His jaw tightened slightly. Then we need to talk about your future here. We already did, I said. I placed a single envelope on his desk. My resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice. Professional. Brief. No emotion. I'm choosing to resign effective 2 weeks from today, I said. He blinked. You're quitting? I'm complying with your options. For the first time, he looked uncertain. That's not what I meant. It's what you wrote. I replied evenly. He glanced at the email printout I'd attached to my resignation. The word correct. Stared back at him. Silence filled the office. Because here's the thing about ultimatums. They only work if the other person is afraid of both outcomes. I wasn't. I'd already begun applying elsewhere. Updated my resume that weekend. Reached out to former colleagues. And quietly mentioned to a few clients that I'd be transitioning soon. Word travels fast in small industries. By the end of the week, something interesting happened. 2 of our biggest accounts emailed, asking why I was leaving. Apparently, my boss hadn't anticipated that I was their primary contact. Or that they valued continuity. He called me in again that Friday. This resignation is causing disruption, he said stiffly. I gave notice, I replied. You didn't have to quit. You gave me 2 choices. That wasn't. It's in writing, I said gently.
And that's when I saw it. The shift.
He wasn't annoyed anymore. He was calculating. Because replacing a trained employee mid-quarter isn't cheap. Losing client confidence isn't cheap. And legal exposure? Definitely not cheap. The $50 solution was starting to look very expensive. My final week approached. And I hadn't even made my next move yet. But he was about to find out. That compliance cuts both ways. By the start of my 2nd week, the atmosphere had changed. He wasn't cold anymore. He was cautious. Careful with wording. Careful with tone. Careful with emails. Because once something exists in writing, it stops being a conversation. It becomes evidence. 2 more clients asked to speak with me directly. One even said, "We were surprised to hear you're leaving so suddenly." I kept my response neutral. I'm pursuing opportunities that better align with my long-term needs. Professional.
Vague.
Accurate. Meanwhile, my attorney had reviewed everything. The $50 document. The email confirmation. The timeline. Her words were simple. If you'd like to file, you have leverage. Leverage. That word stuck with me. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about precedent. If he'd done this to me, he'd probably do it again. And the next person might not have screenshots. Midweek, he asked to revisit the conversation. I brought a notebook. He cleared his throat. We may have communicated poorly about the leave situation. May have. The $50 was intended as a gesture, he continued. A gesture toward what? I asked calmly. He didn't answer that directly. We value your contributions, he pivoted. Perhaps we can discuss a flexible arrangement. Flexible. Interesting how flexibility appears when consequences do. What does that look like? I asked. He hesitated. Unpaid leave with job protection. That was significantly different from termination. And that's company policy? I asked. We can formalize it. Now, he wanted formalization. I nodded slowly. I'll need that in writing. His jaw tightened again. Because documentation was no longer his friend. That afternoon, I received an updated proposal via email. It was cleaner, less aggressive. No mention of termination. No mention of $50. Just unpaid leave language. But there was something missing. An acknowledgement. He never addressed the original ultimatum, never apologized, never corrected the record. And here's what he still didn't realize. I had already accepted another offer. A competitor. Higher salary. Formal maternity policy. HR department. Benefits outlined in writing.
My final day arrived.
I handed over my badge. Transferred project files. Provided a clean transition summary. No scenes. No raised voices. As I packed my desk, he stood awkwardly near the doorway. We could have worked this out, he said. We did, I replied. And then I added, gently, you gave me two options. I walked out at 4:57 p.m. 3 minutes early. Intentional. That weekend, my attorney filed a formal complaint. Not dramatic. Not public. Just procedural. The evidence was attached. The $50 document. The email confirmation. The timeline of resignation following the ultimatum. I didn't need to argue. The documentation spoke clearly. And the irony? If he had simply followed basic law from the beginning, I probably would have stayed. Instead, he tried to save money. $50. That was the number he chose. But in trying to minimize cost, he maximized risk. And the bill was still coming due. 2 weeks into my new job, I felt something I hadn't felt in months.
Calm.
HR had already emailed me maternity policy documents, clearly outlined, compliant, structured. No gestures. No ultimatums. Just process. Meanwhile, my former boss was discovering what process really meant. The complaint didn't explode publicly. It didn't need to. It triggered paperwork. Requests for response. Requests for documentation. Requests for policy clarification. The kind of requests that make small business owners realize they should have had an HR department. He hired an attorney. That alone cost more than the $50 he'd offered me. From what I later learned through filings, his defense argument was simple. It was misunderstood. But emails don't misunderstand. They timestamp. They archive. They preserve tone better than memory ever could. About a month later, 2 former coworkers reached out privately. Apparently, word had spread internally. Not the full legal details. Just enough. Is it true you were offered $50? One asked. Yes. Wow. Turns out, I wasn't the first employee he'd pressured during a medical situation. I was just the first one who documented it. That changed everything. Because once one person pushes back, others reconsider what they tolerated. 3 months after my resignation, a mediation session was scheduled. Not a courtroom. Not dramatic. Just a conference room and attorneys. He avoided eye contact when I entered. His lawyer did most of the talking. They framed it as a miscommunication. I didn't argue emotionally. I didn't need to. The printed email sat in a folder between us. One word highlighted. Correct. That was enough. The outcome wasn't about headlines. It was about correction. Policy revision requirements. Financial settlement. Mandatory compliance, training documentation. The settlement amount? Let's just say it had more zeros than 50. And it came with something more valuable than money. A paper trail that ensured future employees wouldn't receive gestures in place of rights. After mediation, he approached me briefly. I never meant for this to escalate, he said. I didn't either, I replied. But escalation happens when power goes unchecked. He thought the ultimatum would corner me. Instead, it exposed him. And here's the part people always expect to be dramatic. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it. I didn't blast the company online. Because this wasn't about humiliation. It was about boundaries. He offered me $50 for pregnancy leave. He expected fear. He expected compliance. He got compliance. Just not the kind he anticipated. And the real shift? It wasn't the settlement. It wasn't the new job. It was the realization that documentation is leverage. And leverage changes conversations. Especially when someone underestimates you. He tried to reduce my pregnancy to a minor inconvenience. But paperwork has weight. And that weight, it's a lot heavier than $50. I gave birth 6 months later. Healthy baby. Healthy recovery. Stable job waiting for me when I returned. My new company sent flowers. HR checked in without being intrusive. My manager asked one simple question before I left. What do you need from us to make this smooth? No ultimatums. No small business realities. Just structure. It still amazes me how normal that felt. Because respect shouldn't feel luxurious. It should feel standard. A few months after mediation concluded, I heard through the industry grapevine that my former employer had quietly updated their policies. Formal leave documentation. Clear HR escalation procedures. No more handwritten agreements. Apparently, compliance training became mandatory. Funny how that works. The $50 offer had been framed as cost control. But here's what it actually cost him. Legal fees. Settlement payout. Policy overhaul expenses. Reputational damage. Client discomfort during my departure. All because he underestimated two things. The law. My willingness to document. People assume malicious compliance means theatrics. It doesn't. Sometimes it's just taking someone at their word. He gave me two options. $50 or termination. So I complied. I removed myself from the equation. And once I did, his cheap solution became a very expensive lesson. The real irony? If he had offered even basic unpaid protected leave from the beginning, I likely would have stayed. He didn't lose me because I was pregnant. He lost me because he tried to corner me. Pregnancy wasn't the liability.
His ultimatum was.
And here's the quiet truth most toxic managers don't expect. Employees don't explode. They document. They transition. They escalate professionally. And when they walk out, they don't slam doors. They close them carefully. With copies. He offered me $50. I gave him compliance. Turns out, that was the most expensive option of all.